Hey there, Chem 1030 students. We are moving right along. We are now moving on into Module 4. I'm here in our course content. I'm coming down here to Module 4. You have an overview of what Module 4 is all about. We're getting into the more biological aspect of chemistry, so you can kind of see where we're going with it. And so we're walking into chapter 10, week 12. We're getting toward the end. And so this is where you are, where you're watching this. And here are our assignments for week 12. In lab this week, you have an acid-base memorization quiz. We'll talk about that in a minute. You have on eLearn a pH quiz. It's in the quiz tool, but it's not really a quiz. It's untimed, but you only get one shot at it. Your lecture assignment is chapter 10, and it looks pretty typical pre-lecture guided notes and slides and videos, post-lecture assignment, and an adaptive follow-up if you need it. And then in lab, you're doing experiment 9. So it's a pretty typical week, except you do have these extra 2 assignments. So let's talk about them. They're both on material we learned last week in chapter 9. So I'm going to switch over to this tab, which is open to chapter 9, guided lecture notes, slides, and videos. And your acid-base quiz that you are taking in lab this week is found here in the guided lecture notes and the videos most distinctly at the last half of chapter 9 video 1, the first part of chapter 9 video 2. Essentially what you're doing is you have to memorize the strong acids and strong bases and know which ones are strong versus which ones are weak. This is your textbook. I've jumped over here to chapter 9. This was section 2, and it does go through a list in section 2, but they are summarized really well for you in these 2 videos. Also on your guided lecture notes, you'll see them covering the material. So I strongly recommend you go back, you make your list of strong acids and strong bases, you be familiar with the formulas and names of the other acids and bases and know that if they're not strong, they're weak, so that you can take that quiz in lab this week and do really well. I'm back here on week 12. The other holdover we have from chapter 9 from last week is there is a pH quiz. It is here in eLearn in the quiz tool. It's also linked below. I'll show you it linked below. You are calculating pH given OH minus, for example, or OH minus concentration given pH. All the variations. We learn these. Again, I'm going to flip over here to our textbook, chapter 9. This was down here in section 9.5. And again, you do have guided notes and videos, but the calculations are here in chapter 9, section 5. And I encourage you to closely pay attention to these calculations that they're doing down here in the calculation section, specifically the significant figure rules. They're different than the ones we learned earlier. And here's the deal. On the pH activity that's here in eLearn, if you get the sig figs wrong, you've missed the entire problem. So careful. If the concentration of hydroxide ion has 2 significant figures, the pH has 2 decimal places. Oops. Yeah. If the OH minus concentration has 2 significant figures, the pH has 2 decimal places. That's a totally different rule than the rules we learned about previously. If the OH minus concentration just has 1 sig fig, the pH has 1 decimal place. And so keep this handy as you're doing that activity, and then memorize it as you work your way toward the next exam or have it on your notes. All right. Going backwards, the sig fig rule is right here. If the pH value has 2 decimal places, there are 2 significant figures in the hydroxide or hydronium ion concentration. If there's 1 decimal place in the pH, there's 1 sig fig in the H plus concentration. So you can see some problems worked out. They follow the sig fig rules correctly, and so pay attention to the sig fig rules when you type in your answers. It's not just about getting the calculation correct, but it's also about getting the right sig figs. You'll miss the problem if you have the wrong sig figs. So those are holdover from Chapter 9. The rest of the material is as usual. You're also working through Chapter 10 material and moving forward with that. So this is week 12. Let me come back out to the entire week 12 folder. Here it is. All right. As usual, inside we have the overview video, or the overview note and video that you're watching. We have a lecture folder and a lab folder. I'm going to drill down into the lecture folder, and there we do see your memorization quiz for acids and bases. So this is a paper lab that you're going to take during lab this week. So just get ready for that. And then we have our pH quick check. And so again, this is just the overview. You're going to review the calculations for pH from Chapter 9. Again, go back and watch those videos. Try a few. Be sure you understand how sig figs work. And then this link takes you to that practice quiz. It's also linked right below this. I'm coming back. We were just looking at this. Here is a link to that calculation practice quiz. It opens up a quiz in eLearn. And that is not due until December 12th, but one shot, but it's untimed. So you can save some answers, come out, uh, close it, put it away. Don't submit it until you're ready to submit it. All right, that's your pH quiz. After you finish those, or as I would get started working on that quickly. Make sure you get those acids and bases memorized quickly because you're going to see that in lab. I would start working on the pH quick check assignment early in this week, and that way you can get some help if you're stumbling on something or want to confirm that you have the rules correct. You have then after that, or along with that, I guess I should say, your Chapter 10 pre-lecture assignment, your guided lecture notes, slides, and videos, only a couple videos this week, and then your post-lecture assignment, post-lecture adapted follow-up if you're given that. Also pay attention to what's going on in lab this week. All right, so pay attention to what's going on in lab this week. Professor Mollish will talk to you more about that. Do post on our discussion board if you have any questions. I am happy to answer questions up there, especially if you're wanting to confirm a couple of pH questions. We can do that. All right, guys, good luck. Week 12, moving right along. Before you know it, we'll be finished.